Right guys, I'm going to introduce you into a login program which you can see here. This is a program that does a quiz, has a login, has a menu and has different users. Now one of the things you have to do for your project is a typical login system. So I'm just going to show you how you might go about doing that. So this is my project. You've got all the different forms over here and the different projects. And on here you'll see I've got a login form. So if I double click on there, you have my form over here. Now to add forms in VB, you simply click on project and you go add Windows form, and that will give you a form. And the first thing you need to do with a form is name it. So I've called this form login. Now generally speaking, all forms start with the prefix FRM for form. So we right click on this and we go properties, and you can see there that's what I've called it, given it that name, and that's what I'm going to keep it. For the form, I have a form. I make sure I give the form the title at the top. So I go down here in the property section and you'll find there where it says text somewhere, it's near the top I suspect, text login. So that's login, and plus we need to name the form. So we go down and we call it FRM, form login, and we can change the size of the form, etc, etc. So now I need to put some components on here. Now if you click on the toolbox on the left, which is over here, so where it says toolbox, you'll find it has all these different tools. Now we want two labels, that one, and we want two text boxes. Okay, so we go down here and we select two text boxes, that text box and the next text box. Now the key thing when we drag these components on, there's two things we have to do. One is we must name every single component. Now labels, we normally label LBL and the name of the label. So in this case I've called it LBL username. Okay, and then I also give it the actual what the label says, in this case username. For the text box I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to call it TXT username because that's where I'm going to put my username, and for this one I'm going to call it TXT password. Now for buttons I do more or less the same thing, but we call them BTN, short for button, and I've called it login, and that one I've called BTN exit. So I've created my form, and the next bit is to add some code to it. So when I click on the login it's going to actually do something. So if I look at my login, double click, we have the following code, and you're probably going to say to yourself, what does this code mean? Well, first of all we'll start off with this file name. Now this is pretty obvious. This tells me where, when I click the login button, it's going to look for a set of users in a text file, a file saved in Notepad, and that's going to be stored on my user area. And in this case, my name of the file is called users.txt, but that is located in K Drive, Parkhouse, GCSE, NEA, Task 1. Now, I can find that file, which is here, by clicking on it there, and then that is the path. K Drive, Parkhouse, GCSE, NEA, Task 1, and that is the name of the file. Now, in my file, my text file, which is simply a Notepad file, this looks like this. This is what I'm going to have. Okay. Now I'm going to create a text file which stores all my usernames and passwords. And in my text file, I have my username, my actual name, and my surname, followed by my password. Then I'm going to have another user, their name, and password. And you'll notice that each one of these is broken up by a comma. Now I'll tell you how useful that's going to be later, when we read the file. So go back to our code. Okay, now this is my username and password as a string. This is telling me whether I've logged in or not, and we're going to set that as by default as false. And then this split line as a string, and I'll explain what that does in a minute. This then says if my file name exists, in other words, there's no point checking if the username exists if they haven't actually got a file, and if it exists, true, then do the rest. This says read the file located in wherever file name is, which is this bit up here. It then creates a loop and it says while I'm not reaching the end of the file and I'm not logged in, then read the first line of my text file. Then, now this is the magic bit. Okay. Now we defined it up here. And what this does is it looks at my text line, okay, and it splits it up wherever it finds a comma, and then puts it into this array called ssplit. So the first element before the comma will be position 0, the second will be 1, and third is 2, etc. And then we say the username is equal to the first element and the password is equal to the third element. And I'll say if my username is equal to text username.text. Now what this means is where it says txt username, that is the text box that I created, here. If you look at this text box, it's called txt username. So what it's actually saying is if my username that I've just loaded in is equal to what is in my text box, so my name of my box dot text, and if my password is equal to my password box, then I have logged in. I set logged in to true. I keep looping through. Now if I've logged in once I've read the first line of my notepad file, then I finish this loop. Otherwise go on to the next line to see if my username and password are that. So it either keeps going on until either I've logged in or I've hit the end of my file. If I've logged in, so my username and password were correct, then I create a message saying logged in, and then I activate my other form, which I'm not going to do just yet because we haven't got another form. If not, then say incorrect login, and then this says increment the number of failed logins, which is set up here. So basically, if I get it wrong 3 times, it's going to lock my out. It's going to close the form down. Okay. This bit here just says, well, if my logins exceed 3, I have had 3 incorrect attempts, then I actually finish my program. I exit the program completely. So that's a very simple program to load in a username, a login, and test if it works. Now I'll just run it just to prove that it does work. So if I look at my text file over here and load that up. So if I put in G Bradshaw testy, that should work. So I'll go to G Bradshaw testy, I'll run the program, I'll log in, G Bradshaw testy, and I'll log in, and it's logged in. Done. And it goes on to the next part of my program. So that is a very simple bit of code. And if you can do that, I'll be very happy. So well, that means we can get a nice simple login, and you can change these bits as you see fit. By the way, if you wanted in the login form, for example, you didn't want the user to see the password, you would change the properties down here. And one of the properties is password char. So we can say replace characters with, say, a star character. And hopefully, if you replicate that, so by the end of this lesson, I want you all to have a simple login form. Thank you.